Welcome back to the Coach Steve Show. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube, follow and rate on Apple and iTunes and Spotify, follow on X, Instagram, and TikTok, all that good stuff. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. As always, leaving your thoughts, everything like that. This episode is not going to be about sports. We are broadening things here. Something that I've thought about doing. I've put out 2 episodes like this. One long time ago. It was kind of first episode in a long time. The other one I did was kind of talking about Protestantism versus like Catholic. And what I've been doing I've been doing it for a little bit, but the last 2 weeks for sure, all I've done is watch videos on religion. It's been weird videos. It's been watching people go over other people's videos. But I'm getting information on Protestantism and Catholic, and I've been researching a lot about Catholic, and I have some books to read that I got. One of them is called just Catholicism. Started to read that. I have another book. His podcast is the Council of Trent. He has one saying like why we're Catholic and explains it. I even got the Catholic Bible because I know they have other books and I have to go into that. But there's other things I want to read. But it's been a lot of Google searching. It's been a lot of watching videos of people that have information more, way smarter than I am. And the last video I did, I talked about Protestantism versus Catholic. And in that video, the reason why I'm researching this is because I'm starting to question which side I lean on, because there are similarities for sure and things that to me are the same for both sides, just said differently. And also for me, quick recap, went to a Methodist church, which I know is one of the denominations of Christianity and Protestantism. And in the United States, religion is going up. They had the record sales. It was either record sales or like a surging of Bible sales, especially after the Charlie Kirk assassination. People are starting to go back to religion, and it's just something I've been thinking about for a year now. And watch the other video for the recap of what I did and what's thinking. But being in the suburbs of Chicago, you have a bunch of everything, but I'm mainly surrounded by Catholics. And I was one of the idiots that was like, well, I'm a Christian. Well, to me, and watching videos, Catholics are Christians. So for me, it was, well, wait a minute. I've heard of Protestantism, Methodist, of course. Methodist, I went to, like, my village town had 500 people. I think that's where you find Methodist churches. So what's the difference? And so my last video, I kind of talked about, the big things with Catholic and Protestantism. And since that video, all I've done is watch YouTube videos on what some Protestants think, what Catholics say Protestants think, and what Protestants say Catholics think. And the more I'm looking at it, I was baptized in a Methodist. I don't know if it was baptized, if you want to call it baptized or whatever the terminology is. I was like 15, 16, so I don't know what you would call it. I can't remember. It was my own choice. It wasn't my parents telling me to. I didn't get it as a baby, I don't believe. Like I said, my parents didn't go to church, anything like that. And I don't know if anybody out there has the same thing, like why? Because I just turned 35. I haven't gone to like a church service since 19 or 20, maybe. And from there to I was 33 when I started to think about it again. And then I was 34 when I started to take steps to have conversations about it. And then now 35, really starting to think about it. So I don't know if that ever happens to people. Like, it's interesting to me. There's a lot of history. I like history stuff. So I know with this stuff, there's a lot of history to it. And I don't know, maybe it's just being around a group of belonging. Like, I coach, I feel like I belong, but maybe, I don't know. There's just something where it's telling me to research and look, and I don't know what it is. But regardless, that's all I've been doing is watching these videos and then starting to question and wrestle with myself of Protestant or Catholic. And the thing that you find is people say the Catholic Church is corrupt. They've had some scandals. And so people will say on these things, well, I think you'll find scandals with anybody, but the Catholic religion is, I don't know if it's the biggest, but it's one of the biggest. I think it's billions and billions of people. And it's I think one of the most well known. I don't think it's well known because the more you look at it, there are things said about the Catholics and you find out the real thing and you go, well, how'd you come up with that? And it seems like people really hate Catholics for some reason. Can't tell you why. Well, I can't tell you why, but that's kind of the things. But the more I'm looking at this, the more I'm like, maybe I'm leaning to be a Catholic. And so this video is just very quickly going to talk about like what's kind of leaning me to this, because I'm going to have to start watching videos more on what I think more Protestant. I don't think Methodist is the way. It would have to be like Protestant, Baptist type of, maybe just Protestant, because I know Baptist is kind of lower. But I watch these videos of these people that were Protestant growing up, and then they switch and they go to Catholic. And the reasonings that they're saying are reasonings that I'm thinking of. And so these are just kind of things of why I might do it. I still have to think about it, have some conversations. I wouldn't even know where to begin. I wouldn't even know what I had to do, because Methodist churches and other churches, I think I can just talk to the pastors and walk in. I think Catholic, you can't do the Eucharist. You can't do confession unless you are a Catholic, right? So things that are kind of making sense to me. People in the outside of Catholic hate the Pope. And one things I was looking at was, and when I look at, and then again, I'm not reading these, but it's in these videos where in the Bible it talks about how Peter was kind of the first saint, or I don't even think it was the Pope, but like the first saint, because Jesus said, I leave you like all this responsibility of passing down this knowledge, passing down the religion and all that stuff. And so for me, looking at the Catholic Church, I think that's what the Pope's job is to be kind of that source, that kind of same thing that Peter did. The saints and the are they called priests? I hate saying the wrong thing. All over are kind of those same people, and there's like a collective where, from my understanding, now some have gone astray, but they all kind of, if they're all on the same page, they preach the same thing, and they're there to teach about tradition. They're there to teach about the Bible. They're there to teach about things, how they connect. And I look at it like coaching, from my understanding, and I want to be corrected if I'm wrong, but like in coaching on a staff, we all have to do the same thing. We have to be on the same page. And then we go to coaching clinics to learn. We talk, like I talk to football coaches all over the country, watch every video, and I've been very blessed to do so. And I just learn these things. And the Catholic Church, I feel that's kind of the same thing, where if the Pope's the head coach and everybody else under him is the assistant coaches, Or is he like the athletic director and then the other guys are head coaches and everybody else under them is the assistant coaches? Then they all meet and they talk and they go over things and make sure that the same message is getting out. Now, some of these people are being very progressive and kind of going away from what teaching is, which I'm not going to get into that. I mean, people have their views, but I kind of like that. I kind of like there being that person preaching a message. Then you go and you hear, again, if they're not called priest, I apologize. My brain is, I've taken a lot of information in over 2 weeks of just watching these videos, and some go to what I'm talking about, then some are just extra stuff that I was watching. They call them father, or like, I think they're priests. Let's just call them priests. I don't think they're pastors, they're priests. Hearing the same message come from them. And then that's like their only thing, right? Where they took celibacy and this is their only thing. I watched, I think it's David Ross. I apologize. Father David Michael Ross, maybe. And I watched him. He's very young. He's 32, 33 years old. He did like a day in the life, and that's like all he does. And his off time is working at home, doing that, going to the gym. Like that's what they do. I think it's Father Schmitz, same thing. And it kind of, I mean, if that's what they want to do and that's what they've dedicated to, I kind of like that they're there all the time for somebody and for people. So that part's speaking out to me. I'm watching videos on like how the church part service works, and it looks more like a church. Very traditional, kind of the way I don't know if it's exactly what they've done in the old days, but I also think there's something to be said about it's been around for 2,000 years, pretty much. I think it was 33 AD when it was around, maybe. So to be around that long must have something to it, where these other denominations and like Protestantism started in the 1500s, so it's 500 years versus 2,000 years, and the Catholic Church being around for 1,500 years then when this was made. So I think there's something to be said about that. So they must be doing something right. And I also like they're not saying that works get you into heaven. It's by faith alone, baptism. But what they talk about works is, well, again, I talked about this in the other video, but real quick is I've watched TV shows, cartoons that make fun of this, where they say by faith alone you get in, and that's what Protestantism is. Like if you give your life to Jesus, you get into heaven, right? And so they make fun of it, saying, well, what if somebody doesn't until right before they die, and they say, I accept it, they believe it, they go to heaven. I kind of like the doing that part, but then saying like, okay, but show that you're serious, right? Like only God and Jesus know if we say that we believe. They know if we're lying, right? You can be baptized, but in your heart of hearts, are you getting baptized because your parents told you to? Do you do it and then something happens to where you say, I don't, and your heart of hearts of, I don't believe anymore, that type of thing. So that part, the part of you do all that part, then you go every Sunday because there's these traditions. That part is speaking to me, and I kind of, it's resonating with me. Because like the Methodist church, if I didn't go on a Sunday, there was never like a guilt. There was never a feel bad. There was never anything like that. And again, watch the other video. I never stopped I firmly believe that that God created the heavens and earth, everything. The only thing that makes sense to me. I believe all of it. I don't think it's a fictional thing, and I never stopped believing that because I've had conversations about it for some reason or another. But I don't have the information. I'm not knowledgeable enough to like back everything up. But me personally was this makes sense to me. So those things are it feels very traditional. And this is nothing against like where I went. When you went, you could tell it was a church. My friend's dad, they had a band, and that's what would play. When I say band, I mean you had a drummer, I think bass and guitar, and somebody singing. That was it. But it was, like I said, very small. Like my town was only 500 people, and not everybody went, right? But that's what was there. When I look at videos, I've never been to a Catholic mass or by any means, but when I watch the videos, I'm like, oh, this seems very traditional. This seems very, not to offend, but like old school. And I think of sports, like some things are, you want to keep some old school things, but you want some new school things. But they keep it very traditional. They keep it it seems like old school, like this is what church is supposed to look like. Those things are sitting with me, and they want you to do good works. They want you involved. They want to get you there. So for me, that's kind of why I might pull the trigger and figure out how to become Catholic, because there's other things that are resonating with me. The Eucharist part doesn't bother me. I can't remember how many times we did it at the Methodist. I feel like we did it a few times. Some do it like once a month. I felt like it was random. I can't remember. It seemed kind of random to do it. Well, they call it communion. It wasn't the Eucharist. It was communion. But the same type of thing. Like you got juice and bread. But I feel like it was very like random. It wasn't, we're doing it because of this. We're doing it because it's once a month. It just felt like it might have been once a month, probably. That part doesn't, like, if we're saying this is the body of Christ and the blood of Christ, Protestants find that like very offensive. They're like, it doesn't say that in the Bible. Like, there's certain things that people aren't agreeing on, and it doesn't make sense. It's like, what's the big deal? That part doesn't bother me. I like the universal church part for most. There's some that are loony and lost their minds a little bit. One thing that they're talking about authority, right? And this is probably the last thing I'll talk about because I don't want to do this for too long. One thing about authority, right? And they said, Protestants and Catholics, the Protestants say that the authority is the Bible and the Word of God and the Word of Jesus and everything. I agree. But they talk about the authority being the church, but they also say that the authority is the Bible too. Like they do, like right here, authority. If you click on Catholic and authority, it says, well, no authority above themselves. So, but accepting the reality that God is King and loves us is freeing. We also, Catholics, can be confident, of who God is. Like literally, if you, right here, I'm just going to read this. Authority. Society does not like authority. Well, no authority above themselves, but accepting the reality that God is King and loves us is freeing. We also, as Catholics, can be confident that God, who established this church through Jesus Christ's apostles, will not let the gates of hell prevail against it, even if people in the church fall to sin. St. Augustine says, I would not believe in the gospel if the authority of the Catholic Church did not move me to do so. So you need people there and around you to interpret what's being said. And sometimes in Protestants, you have one person up there just kind of talking about it, and there's no like authority from that person. A little bit, the older you get, like when you're younger, but when you're older and you start critical thinking or, really asking questions, and I'm sure they have answers, but are they telling you answers from what they think or what influences their views. But when I'm watching things on the Catholic Church, there's a phrase that facts don't care about your feelings, tough love, those type of things. I think that's what the Catholic Church, from what I'm reading and watching, that's what kind of the authoritative part is. But I think Protestants and Catholics both believe that the Bible is the Word of God, but the Catholic Church also thinks of other things along with that, but that's number one. Protestants say that the Catholics don't do that. But what scares me about, like, if I've read a little bit of the Bible over this time, I'm reading it, and I don't know what I'm sometimes looking at. I have it just as it says Christian Bible. It's a Protestant Bible, only has the 66 books. I think it's 66, excuse me. But I have a study thing that explains it, so I have to read what's right there and then read a ton right underneath of it. So it was just a ton more reading to examine what I just read, and then so it's really big. If I read it and interpret it a certain way, that's what I'm going to say. Unless I'm I'm a coach, I'm the type of person that says, well, I don't understand some of this reading, so I'm going to reach out to them and talk and elaborate, kind of what the Catholic Church does. I don't know if all the Protestant pastors do that. So those are some of the things that's kind of leaning me towards Catholicism. And the more I look at it, I'm going to do more digging and more looking, find a way to talk to people. That's my next step, is more information and see if I can't talk to people about it. But those are some of the reasons why I'm kind of leaning towards Catholicism. There's a couple more reasons, but those were like some of the top. Leave a comment in the comment section down below of elaborating on some of the things I said, your thoughts, opinions, everything like that. Just don't come at me for something because somebody came at me for something on a video. All I commented was, thanks for the view. You viewed it, you commented, thanks for that. So again, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Follow, rate on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, follow on X, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. So thank you guys again for watching and or listening. This is Coach Steve. We'll see you guys next time.